Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli here. Welcome to a brand new edition of In the Shop. And we've got a good one for you today, continuing our conversation about new products launching at ICAST here in 2021. And I got a special one for you today. And this is the first look at the brand new Missile Jigs Mini Swim Jig, showing you for the first time. The brand new Missile Mini Swim Jig. And I want to talk to you about why we designed this and when to fish a smaller, more compact swim jig. Before I get into this, let me go back and reference the Missile Miniflip Jig. And many of you watching right now know the power of a smaller, more compact pitching and flipping jig. The Missile Miniflip Jig I designed back in 2013. And in 2014, this bait helped me win the Delaware River. And a more compact jig is critical when the fishing's tough, when there's a lot of fishing pressure, there's a lot of dudes fishing in front of you, when the weather sucks, right? When there's a cold front, when the water's clearer, or especially when the forage is smaller, a more compact bait is key. So the mini flip worked great when we were pitching and flipping. But what about when we're fishing a swim jig? When we're reeling that jig in, when we're swimming it? Now we've got the mini swim, especially for this scenario. Same great features, right? Same great features. When you want a jig that's smaller and more compact, this is going to be the one, right? If there's a lot of dudes fishing a swim jig in the area you're fishing, great time to go to a compact, smaller profile swim jig. If a cold front comes through, right? If you're fishing a full-size swim jig and a cold front rolls through and the pressure starts rising and it's bluebird, the fish tighten up. Great time to fish a smaller, more compact swim jig. What about clean to clear water, right? In dirty water, a full-size swim jig, that's fine. But in clear water and clean water, smaller profile is better. And last but not least, the times you want a small profile swim jig like this mini swim is when the forage is smaller. I don't care if you're imitating shad or herring or minnows or bluegill or crawfish, whatever you're imitating with that swim jig, when it's small, right? When you look in the water and the bluegill are that big, not that big, you want a smaller profile bait, right? So match the hatch. And that's what we have here in the mini swim. I want to talk to you about a couple of the features and benefits. First one, and the most important on this jig, is head design. And I want to rotate it a little here, and I hope you can see this. We have what's called a modified banana-shaped jig head on this swim jig. And if you look at it, it's flat on the bottom, right? It's very flat and broad on the bottom. But it actually curves up to a point where your line ties up, right? Where your line tie is at. So flat bottom, but starts to curve up like a banana till you get to the line tie. And that design and shape is so critical to get this thing to swim, right? The first one is that very flat, broad head. And the more water that catches, the more that jig is going to rock side to side. So because of that flat bottom, this Missile Mini Swim is actually going to shimmy left to right, just a little bit, very subtle, left to right. Very key movement in a swim jig. The other thing is, because that head starts to thin out and curve and come to a point, this is a jig that's going to get through the cover even better. To aid to that, and I want you to focus in on that line tie, we designed an inline integrated line tie. So half of that line tie is built into the head, the other half's exposed, but that line tie is in line with the hook. It's in line. So the combination of that banana shape, that little curve, and then that coming to a point where that line tie is in line, built into the head, that's going to help that jig come through cover. I don't care if it's grass or wood or docks or sticks or trees, whatever you're fishing that swim jig around, it's going to come through and over it a lot better. And because that line tie is integrated, it's going to protect your knot a little bit, and it's going to keep that trash from building up, okay? The positioning of that fiber guard is the most critical thing on a jig, but especially on a swim jig, where a lot of the times the bass hit it out of a reaction, it's got to be at the perfect angle. We worked really hard on providing a 30-strand fiber guard at the perfect angle to keep it weedless, keep it snagless, but when a fish bites, it compresses down real easy, okay? I want to go back to that head, and if you look at the cosmetics of that head, we added a little gill plate on either side of the head, but look at that giant eye spot that we put on this mini swim. We put a giant eye on either side of that jig. And, you know, of course, when you're mimicking forage that has a big eye or forage that has a dot on it, that's key. And to me, an eye becomes a bullseye. It becomes a focal point. So by putting that eye on the jig head, when the fish attack it, they're going toward the hook every time, okay? Skirt color, we're going to have this in 8 great skirt colors, including a lot of the great colors you see in the Miniflip and the addition of some great bait fish colors as well. You know, we're going to have this in 3 different sizes, a quarter, a 3/8, and a half. And now I want to get to the hook, because a hook in a swim jig, it's pretty important. And a couple cool features that you're going to see on this mini swim hook. The first one is the keeper that is on the shank of the hook. And we have a 90-degree L-shaped keeper right on the shank of the hook. So whatever trailer you're using, I like to use swim baits, I like to use crawls. That's a Berkeley chigger crawl. When you slide that trailer on there, that 90-degree L-shaped keeper is going to keep that plastic bait on there. A lot of swim jigs, that trailer is going to keep falling. That's going to help to keep that trailer in place. Last but not least is that hook. And a hook in a swim jig is super important. A lot of times people build jigs around hooks. You go open a catalog, there's a hook. Let's use that hook, we'll build the jig. Well, on this one, we built a hook around the jig. And this is a custom VMC hook built especially for this jig. The combination of that angle, of that inline line tie, it's the perfect gauge, right? It's not too stout, but it's not finesse. It's not light wire at all. It's the perfect gauge for a swim jig. And the size is compact, just like this bait. I love swim jigging. I love it. I think it's a great way to fish a skirted jig. But there are times when you need a small one. When you want that smaller bait, this is going to be your go-to. It's the brand new Missile Jigs Mini Swim. It's coming out at ICAST 2021. It's going to be available at TW real soon. Keep your eye out for it. I hope you enjoyed this little tip about switching to a compact jig instead of a full size. A lot of times that's a difference maker. It's going to catch you a lot more fish. Listen to me, if you enjoy these videos, if you like all these tips and little sneak peeks into what's coming, do me a favor, stop right now, stop what you're doing, mash that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my channel. If you're already subscribed, do me a favor, tell your fishing friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're going to have great educational content coming to you every single week. Grab yourself a compact swim jig and go catch a bass.